Yeah, you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not good in this using this PDF, so I'm doing it very rarely. So I will try my best to use this technology. Mm. Good evening, everyone. Okay, I will start now. Today, we will just review what we have studied before, and then we will try to study about the post meditation after the ultimate bodhicitta is practiced, and then what should we do as a regular practitioner. You see, before we go to the point, it's always important that you remember why you are studying the text. It's not for just to get rid of stress or just to become powerful or something like that. This is not what the intention should be when you are learning the Dharma. So Khenpo always said to me, you have to remind them how to practice. Yellow box.
Khenpo, you go below.
Which one is the yellow box?
Yep, right there, next to it.
This?
No, go next
This?
one. Yep, that one. Just press that.
Okay. So it's very important that we remember that we are learning this Dharma to know the reality. It's not for the sake of just becoming relaxed in your life. If you want to be just relaxed in your life, then you can do yoga or you can go to swimming or maybe hiking, So this is not the purpose of learning the Dharma. So why I'm saying this is because our founder Khenpo always said that you should not just give them too much information. That's way too heavy for the students. So I have to also talk about how to include or incorporate these teachings in your daily life. So I'll try to just review in a more practical way today. So then all the teachings that you receive in the 7-point mind training comes to the purpose of becoming a Buddha. And to become a Buddha, you need to know the reality. So the reality is only understood from the point of ultimate bodhicitta. So this is what we are learning in the second point of the 7-point. The second point is talking about ultimate and the relative bodhicitta. So ultimate bodhicitta is the path. Is actually itself is a path and result, but it is also something you have to remember that can be incomplete and complete also. So is it possible for lay people like us to understand ultimate bodhicitta because it is talking about emptiness? So people has this doubt, how can I see emptiness? So the problem again is not knowing the emptiness is not just one people or few people's problem. It's a maximum maturity of the people's problem because the way how we are trained or born to see the things are really against the view of ultimate bodhicitta. Because you are born and you see things as it is real, and that is the majority's problem, majority of the world's problem, because they tend to think that the things that you see is the appearance to your mind is actually existing. It is real. Therefore, you should find this, you should break this, you should try to achieve it. Therefore, it causes a lot of emotions to arise. And these emotions tend to be, again, the cause for the karmas to ripen or store in your alaya vijnana or the alaya consciousness. And that's how we are always living our life for the whole existence. Therefore, I think it's very important that through the method of vipassana and shamatha, and that's the way how you deconstruct this vision that thinks that everything is real, everything is existing, and therefore I am, and I am real, so I must be this, do this, become like this, and so much emotions come around, then you are never happy in this world. So therefore, this is how you should be practically thinking if you are really practicing the bodhicitta. So this bodhicitta view is something always telling us not to see the things as you are seeing right now, or just to seeing is not a problem. Actually, grasping to the view is the problem. The problem is not seeing. Appearing is not a problem. Appearance is not a problem. But when you make some conditional sort of judgment to that view, that is the problem. That is the problem against the Buddha's teaching, against the practice and the principle of bodhicitta. So therefore, practicing is not something we are doing right now in our daily life, because practicing means, as Kamalashila said, it is to be familiar again and again with the things that you want to be. Like you want to be a bodhisattva, then you must be familiar with the bodhicitta. And bodhicitta means the outlook of bodhisattva, which is to embody it through this practice of relative and the ultimate bodhicitta. So there's the only true way, right, that you can see things relative and ultimate. Again, seeing ultimate and relative in a dual form, like separate, is again big problem, because you are again falling to the trap, this trapping of dualistic. You are seeing subject and object, you are seeing two things, you are separating things. That is always against the law, again, ultimate bodhicitta. In the famous saint called Milarepa, right? In one of his teaching, he said that when you are practicing, you must be free. You must not engage in a way to discriminate between good and bad. You should not live like that, especially when it comes to practicing Guru Yoga or respecting the Guru. If you try to always use that dualistic vision, that it must be either good or it must be either bad. If you think like that dualistic way, then again, you slowly see the faults in the Guru. Now, if you apply it to your daily life, again, that's the problem, right? Because you see, you've met a person for the first time and you have no idea who he or she is, right? But you are again in the trapping of dualistic. It either has to be good or either has to be bad. Because of this habit of falling to the trapping of dualistic, you see that you try to without even knowing the person, you will judge that person by, oh, he is not good because he doesn't look good. Oh, she is not good because she is not coming from that part of the country or that part of the society, town, blah, blah, blah. Then, but you are not seeing the reality because you have never met that person, yet you are judging because of this dualistic problem. That's why I'm saying in our daily life, if you are seeing things from the non-dualistic point of view, which is the ultimate bodhicitta outlook, then you started to get rid of that kind of problem, that judgment, prejudgment, that use preconceived notions that is either good or bad, is either black and white. So that kind of things will be slowly breaked and stopped. And that's when there's a possibility you can remain in the state of what we call the nature of reality, the focus. So that's the way how you try to apply this thing of non-dualistic every day in your life. So this is not in a slide, but just this morning, Kimberly messaged me saying that you are giving too much theoretical understanding, too much information. You have to make it applicable. So I think it's right because I'm speaking too much sometimes. So I'm just trying to review how to you think like an ultimate bodhicitta in your daily life. So when you meet a people, don't try to judge the people based on good or bad. When you try to meet, when you meet some gurus or lamas or whatever person you meet, whether it's a Buddhist or non-Buddhist, don't try to discriminate by thinking from the dualistic point of view, which is against the ultimate bodhicitta. So this is what I am. Maybe this is what is called practicing, or maybe talking in realistic point of view. I'm not a good practitioner because I mostly try to focus on theoretical understanding. But today, Khenpo told me you have to talk more on practical application rather than giving information. So I might not be accurate in some point, but there's always a platform. It is always an opportunity for you to discuss with me, or through the question and answer sheet, or to anyone that you know who has a little bit of understanding and good practice foundation. So this is the way how you should actually try to start your way of looking at things if you have got a little bit of understanding of what is ultimate bodhicitta. But we'll just try to go again. What is the ultimate bodhicitta, which is the second point of 7 point of mind training. So ultimate bodhicitta here, which is from the 7 point minding, talking about cutting the self-grasping. The realization of ultimate bodhicitta is achieved through integrated application means combining both shamatha and vipassana. Shamatha itself is not sufficient, Shamatha is something like before when we do the counting of the breath, the ngondo we learn after seeing the faults of the samsara, the precious human life, and the law of karma, and then the death and impermanence. Then you practice the kindness, loving, and then compassion, and then you jump to the first point of 7 point, which is practicing on the counting of the breath. So this is sort of shamatha, that is not vipassana. And I think we have to be aware right now nowadays, because when you go to this lot of fancy workshops or fancy yoga showroom or yoga classes, you will see they are putting this big billboard saying vipassana or like calm, something like that, stress reduction, something sort of mindfulness based stress reduction, something very famous in Western country. But we have to understand these are just a mere sort of temporary sort of it's just a temporary sort of practice. It is not really ultimate because it is not combined with the vipassana meditation. So samatha and vipassana has a very deep context in Buddhist, especially in Mayan and Buddhist, I would say, because Theravada tradition, they have shamatha, vipassana, but they also train to focus more on the conduct. In Mahayana, we mostly prioritize mental inner self more than the outer moral conduct. So even though we practice at the same 3 trainings, with the Theravada. The mind has the same three trainings of conduct, samadhi, and the wisdom. But we give more special place to the wisdom. And therefore, I'm not good with the screen. I think everything is okay, right? The screen?
Yep.
Okay. So the thing is, shamatha is, in a plain, simple description, based on those teachings of Shastras and Sutra Buddha, shamatha means, the real shamatha means a single pointed concentration focused on something that is very virtuous, like the statue of Buddha, for instance, or counting of the breath, or let's say blue flower in Lamde context. So these are the beginning of the meditation aspect, beginning of the what we call Kamalashila words. In the word of Kamalashila, it's called bhavana. So bhavana means drowning yourself into the suchness of mind, the real nature of mind. And shamatha is what we call, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just a starting point. So there's not the end of everything. So shamatha means focusing single point. It means free from dullness and the excitement. Two kind of problem in shamatha is too much in dullness, you feel lazy, or there's too much excitement in your mind. It has to be free from that kind of two problem, and then pointed on single pointedly thinking on one single object, like counting of breath, which we learned before. 3 sets in one singular set. In one count, there's 3 sets, right? Inhalation, exhalation, and abiding of the wind in your respiratory system. And then you do that for that one set for 21 times as a beginner. So that is the beginning part of shamatha. Now, in your daily life, again, as Khenpo requested, now let's think from your daily perspective, how you do that. So if you're not doing sadhana, if you have not received like sadhanas, but you wanted to be single-pointedly focusing on bodhicitta, which you are learning, just stay on the single point, 7-pointed of Vairocana. And before the start of shamatha, it is always required a lot of preparation of places where you want to be meditating. It should not be in crowded places. It should not be in a place that is too much isolated, that if when the robbers and the thieves comes, they might harm you. It should be free from that kind of fearfulness or too much exciting place like the crowds in the big cities. So a lot of preparation they are required for shamatha. So still, maybe there's a possibility where you can find place like maybe Yongpeng is quite good because it is not far from the city like Kuala Lumpur, or not so very much in the jungle, that where you can find security. You can find security there. So there are a lot of preparation in shamatha that you do, and there are a list of that 5 or a lot of things. But the most important thing is the place should be something that always makes you think very calm. That makes your mind free from fear, like, oh, this animal will come, or the thieves will come, or it's too much crowded, or my family will knock the door. That kind of thing has to be free when you are preparing for shamatha. So that's called one way of preparing yourself for calm abiding. And there are places like cushions where you sit. The cushions has to be quite good for not making you problem with your legs or your buttocks or bottom, anything like that. So shamatha is like that. And then actual meditation in shamatha is where you just try to, as the commentary of Kinjabe said, that this is only helping you to calm down the gross level of conceptual grasping. It doesn't mean it will root out every problem. It will, in a temporal way, calm down all the problem. I mean, the main problem, like probably like the 80 crores of concepts that we think, something that from the let's say the gross concept means something from the external feeling you feel. Let's say that is also a part of gross level of concept that will be cleared away through the practice of shamatha, but it doesn't have uprooting the real cause, which is the internal or the subtle level of concept. That is only possible through the practice of vipassana. So that's the second part. And vipassana, when you do the vipassana is something called special insight, right? Because based on shamatha, when you have already found this calmness is not easily gained. You see, when you master the calmness, this has been taught before in many classes by Kimbola in his classes. I think there's a recording about shamatha, where your body becomes very comfortable. Your mind becomes so comfortable that you can put your body and mind almost in any place you want. That is kind of a result or a measurement that you have gained mastery over shamatha. So that is the end of the shamatha brief description. And then vipassana is something now. It is not enough just to master the shamatha. You have to use that. You change the focal object now. Your focal object, the focusing object now in vipassana is something called emptiness, which we have studied in both Ultimate Bodhicitta. We'll again go through that focal object. But during the vipassana, you have to change the focal object, which is using the freedom from extreme or emptiness or shunyata or whatever you call that. That is the basis. That makes the vipassana more important than the shamatha. And that, I would like to say, makes a clear distinction between all those non-Buddhist vipassana centers you see all over the world. Even in big cities like London or wherever you go, you will see this Vipassana center. Goenka, I'm not sure because she's quite important for the promotion of Vipassana. But let's say other centers like maybe, I will not take the name, but in the 80s and 90s when the hippie movement was very famous, during the hippie movement, there was a lot of teachers, right? Charismatic, and they use this term vipassana and so forth. And so this vipassana description, where the focal object is emptiness, shunyata, will make you identify that those are not actual vipassana, which is taught by the Buddha. So that is vipassana, right? Where you are focusing only on the emptiness. And that part becomes the combination of vipassana and shamatha. That is called the non-dual of shamatha and vipassana, which is the ultimate way to reach to the resultant stage of ultimate bodhicitta. That is the only way where you can become ultimate, where you can generate the ultimate bodhicitta, which directly see the emptiness. You see, as a human being in our daily life, again, as Khenpo said, now let's try to compare that in your daily life. Is it possible to see directly? I mean, it's very difficult, almost impossible, right? Because we are, as I said before, living a life where you see things from the preconceived patterns of seeing things through dualistic vision, subject, object, good, bad, black, white. You have never broke that pattern because now your whole identity, your whole existence has been established on that false crown of duality. It's very difficult to come out of it because it has been through countless life in the previous life. But the good news is that you have met the teaching, you have found the teachings, you have found the solution from the Buddha's context and Buddha's teachings. Now, once you have the faith, and once you are prepared, once you have studied step by step, and then you finally reach to the stage of shamatha and vipassana, then finally, I think you have a great chance that you will be able to finally break that pattern, which has been the cause for your countless rebirth in this samsara, which is only suffering, as in the word of Buddha. So that's why samatha and vipassana should not be taken lightly as those modern culture where you can see only in the studios, like the yoga studio with big Vipassanas and Shamatas placards. So that's the brief introduction to Vipassana and Shamatha. And that is also the main cause for you to attend the ultimate bodhicitta, which is the second point of this text. And post meditation, we'll talk in the end about that. Okay, preliminaries, just a review. What are the preliminaries? Precious human life, impermanent and death, karma, faults of samsara. These are must. Without these, there's no Buddhist teaching that can survive, or no practice of your own understanding that can be built without these foundations. So these foundations are very important in all the teachings. So shamatha here, a little bit deep understanding of shamatha. So shamatha is here it said stabilizing the mind and quietening the coarse discursive thinking. So I just gave you the idea, right? Coarse discursive thinking mean of kind of a feeling concept that comes through grasping to external things and which gives you strong emotions like hatred, jealousy, so forth. They are like coarse discursive thinking, but the root of that is very subtle, which comes from the grasping of self, of person, and the phenomena which we talked in previous class during the question answer session. So shamatha here, the theory of shamatha, it is said that a lot of Buddhist texts, even in the tantras, it is said that the wind is very important because the wind is like a horse. It is only wild because when you are a common ordinary practitioner who doesn't have any idea how to control the wind and you have never understood the nature of the wind, then it's maybe proper to say it is wild horse. But when you are doing shamatha, it is not a wild horse. It is very calm, gentle horse. These are very important analogies and examples in all the texts of the Mahayana Buddhist texts. And so the mind is the rider. It's very famous analogy. The mind is the one who ride on that horse. That's the reason why we use the counting of the breath. As per the commentary of Kinjaya Rinpoche, the reason why we choose the breathing counting of 21, then slowly, if count 21 is very easy, then you can expand, increase that count to maybe 30 plus, then 40 plus, and then you can finally, when you find this confidence that, oh, you have now calmness in your mind, I'm not disturbed by the sound, I'm not disturbed by fear of somebody knocking on the door or somebody going to ring the phone. If you are free from that kind of all those discursive thought, then that's the starting point where you try to use now the focal object of emptiness. But still, as a beginner, um, it is always advised that we always count the breath. And during the counting of the breath, first, you don't have to visualize like sickness or color. That is only after a little bit, when you have become a little bit stable, when you get stable, right? At the very first part, just count the breath. You don't have to visualize the color of the wind. This, if you are like first time learning about this, then you just count the number. You just maybe if it's easy, then just count the number 1, 2, 3. So 1 includes 3 stage of breathing: inhalation, exhalation, and inhalation and remaining and exhalation. So through one single nostril, three stage, which is 1 count, and next nostril 1 count. So repeat that for 21 times. So this is the best starting point for the shamatha, where you just have to count the breath. But it's also important that during the breathing technique and breathing session, you don't try to breathe strongly, because if you try to change the course of the natural wind breathing system, it creates a lot of sometimes unhealthy unhealthy cause and condition. So everything has to be normal. If you cannot breathe more than 2 seconds, just do that. If you have a good respiratory system, maybe you are able to hold that for 5-10 seconds. So it always has to be based on your own physical condition. You have to use that condition. That's what we will learn in the, I think, the third point, where you have to transform every inauspicious, unfriendly, bad opportunity into good opportunity. So that's the third point, which here also you are using your own body. You are using your own body's wind to transform it into something goodness like shamatha. So you see, in this way, you can reflect that you're actually also trying to practice the third aspect. So this is how you reflect all the points in your daily life. So we are today learning from the practical point of view, right? To make it more applicable to your daily life. So I'm not going to give a lot of theories or stories today. And then practice counting. Inhale, hold is the second, exhale is the third. And then 21 times. Each one of the count has 3 set, right? Inhale, holding, and exhale. And inhale might be 2 seconds or 10 seconds based on your own respiratory power ability. Don't try to make it harsh on yourself. That's not how the Buddhist way of practice does. If you learn about the Tantrayana later, you will learn about the way of how to transform things very unhealthy into healthy things. So now we are just learning in the Sutrayana point of view, where the breath has to be used for your practice to gain single pointed concentration. So this is the way how you live. Whatever resources you have to use that. You don't need a lot of things to be a good practitioner. Even the breathing or counting is enough. You don't need blue flower. You don't need a lot of statues. So breathing is there, fine. But if you like Buddha statue, you can choose that, because Abhirambaji said in one of the commentary that when you choose Buddha statue, the benefit is that your faith to the Buddha increase because you are seeing that in your practice day to day. So there is also a possibility you can choose that. Not so big, not so far, not so old, not so dim. A lot of characteristic it needs again. So this is how you try to practice the shamatha through the counting of the breath. Mm, mm, mm. So now the second point, which is the four, coming from the 4 root lines, the 4 lines of practicing the ultimate bodhicitta from the text of Atisha or the Chagawa Ishidorje. Again, is very complicated if you look at the history, who wrote this, how it came to being. As I said, Kadamba, the old real Kadamba tradition already got lost, right? So the text, some people say Atisha wrote he never wrote this, but this is his teaching. Some people say Chekawa Hishidorje is the one who wrote this, but he recorded that teaching. So anyway, there are a lot of ways to describe these teachings. So I will not go there again to the history. So the four lines, which gives you the way of looking at things when you're trying to generate ultimate bodhicitta. First, the sequence, how to get to the point of ultimate bodhicitta. First, think that all the phenomena means everything that you see, not only from your eyes, not from your ears, nose, body, sensation, even from your inner mind. You might see the dreams, you might see when you awaken, yet you see things like beyond the nature of the. Okay, understanding, I will just give you a brief idea of what this means. Let's just talk about the nature, the way of mind, the way of mind. I will just give you a brief idea of how it is being said in Abhidharma text. The things, they are like nature of the mind, and there's perception and conception. Perception means something that comes from your sixth sense, ear, nose, tongue, body, eyes, uh, and nose, 5 sense, and then the sixth sense is what we call the mind sense. That is called perception. Something coming from caused by those six senses are called perception. Conception means the seventh kind of thing, or maybe it's more like something that is imagination that has nothing to do with those six. There has indirect connection, but it is not directly connected like perception. I'm just giving you a rough idea what is mind, how many nature of minds are there. I mean, it's very important to learn this Abhidharma because Abhirambacha said, it's very famously said when we were in students in our Sakya college days, when you learn Abhidharma, you started to see things as if you are looking all the world from the top of the roof. But if you just learn one subject, like maybe, I don't know, Pramana, or maybe something like Vinaya, I'm not sure, but just one subject, then you are seeing things like looking from the window. But Abhidharma said that if you see perfect the knowledge of Abhidharma, you are seeing things like you are actually on the top of the roof. You can see 360 degree, 360, 360, this, you can rotate the camera, right? 360, what do you call that? Vision? What do you call that, Ben? 360
I think
degree?
vision is fine. I think dimension.
Dimension, 360 degree or something called that. So that's like Abhidharma. So in that text, it talks about everything, karma, body, mind, Buddhahood, how many worlds are there. So in that text, in that subject, perception is something that is not concept, that is not imagination, but coming from your sixth sense of the body. Concept is something that is not directly linked to that sixth sense, but always happening inside your mind, like anger, hatred, jealousy, 80 types of concepts there. That is always the big problem now. So that is, I'm just giving a different, so we can learn about what's the true nature of mind. So below the sea is always like a it's not non-duality, I don't know, but the below of the sea is always non-duality. This analogy is very famous in Buddhism to learn about the nature of mind. The perception and concept that you see as real, and then you are feeling for that, emotions for that, are like the waves in the surface of the ocean. It is always making noise. It is always a problem. It is always creating a lot of noise, right? Same thing in our daily life. Whatever emotions there are, it is always creating problem. That's like a wave. But if you go deep in the ocean, then below the bottom of the ocean, no matter how many noise the waves are making, the bottom of the ocean is always quiet. Pin drop silence. That's what we see in the movie, right? I've never been down to the ocean, but that's what I see. Pin drop silence. So that's the nature sort of mind. That's the nature essence of the mind. And that nature has to be seen a little bit from the perspective of non-duality, because that's where you have to now learn what you call the essence of mind. So therefore, when you see all the phenomena, especially you think things are real, that point you have to see that everything you see is dream. It's like a mirage, it's like a magic, because it's not separated from the mind. This is the strongest evidence we have for the Buddhism, for the Mahayana Buddhists. If somebody asks you why external things they appear are not external, then you have to say it is just a projection of mind. And that's why it's very similar to a dream. Oh, that's the first way of getting to the deep nature of the mind, first step. So that will help you to get rid of external things, grasping to the external things like chair, pen, car, house, etc. Then the problem again is not solved. Second point told us that the one who is looking at those external things, people might be thinking, oh, the mind is still there. Maybe it is the ultimate thing, truth. But again, you have to analyze that mind. by thinking that this mind is also, which is the subject, is also not real. It is same like dream, because if you try to find the true nature of the mind, it must have some sort of strong ground, like it needs to have color, it needs to have shape, it needs to have body, but you cannot feel that. If the mind is real, it must be coming from, it has to be either in the 3 times, right? The dimension of 3 times. We use this to dissect the nature of the mind. If the mind is real, it must be existing in the past, but it doesn't exist. If the mind is real, it must be existing in the present, but it is not, because the present mind, you cannot find, you cannot hold it, you cannot put it into investigation, because there's no shape, you cannot grasp it. And then the mind is also not in the future, because future are unborn. Therefore, that's the mind is unborn. So how can you find the mind? So you analyze that mind, and then that helps you to think, oh, the mind, the subjective mind is also not true. So that's the second way of now deconstructing the grasping to subject. So second step, right? We're getting close to the mind now, nature of the mind. But yet, problem is still there. So if the mind is what you said, as a result of those 2 analyses, free from subject and object, but maybe the ground of the mind, the basis of the mind itself might be true. Then the third application is there. Even the antidote, which is the non-duality of subject and object, which has been dissolved through first and second step, is still not true. It is also not true because even the antidote itself has to be vanished on the ground, means even the antidote itself, the mind which is free from the non-duality, is also empty, means it is also not real. It is not also ultimately existing. That means it is not really existing like, again, something that you can hold on to. So therefore, now the question is how to actually understand that non-duality of mind, because we only have come to the theoretical understanding. So therefore, in order to now practice on the essence of the mind, the 4th stage say that just rest your natural. Rest means whatever mind or whatever awareness is there. I don't think we can use mind now. So in the end, it's called whatever awareness is there, the clarity is there, just try to rest it. Just try to relax. Just try to rest that natural state of mind into alaya. Means becoming one with the alaya. So that's how we begin to get close to the nature of the mind. So that's how it should be in sequence. So this is a quote which proved that sequence. I actually yesterday found this in one of the commentary, and then I asked Ben to help me translate that, find the Chinese version of that. So the English version, I tried to make a little bit editing there. So, but this sutra, the Blessed One, means the Buddha himself, the Buddha Shakyamuni spoke to the disciple, and the sutra is called Sutra of Clouds of the Noble Jewel, Ratnamega Sutra. Thus, in order to be free from all the grasping of the extremes, one should strive to meditate on emptiness. Because of the continuous meditation on emptiness, wherever the mind radiates, the mind is pleased. The place, the nature, all these things thoroughly examine, which one will realize is emptiness. So you see, these are also the same sequence of the 4 lines. So the second paragraph, because until the emptiness, talks about first point. And if you examine whatever the mind is the second point, you will see there's no existence of mind is the third point. In this way, one will realize the yoga of emptiness, emptiness of characteristics, which is the 4th mind. So that's what Buddha said. So you see, you have to make all this cross-examination through a lot of things to come up to the nature of mind to prove that. So I also got a lot of homework to prepare for this class, and I'm very thankful to all the team who actually always helped me make this easy to prepare. So you see, these 4 lines is not something Atisha created, but it was already taught in the Buddha's teaching, the Sutra of Ratnameka. So you see, we are also trying to make a lot of, like we're actually creating a thesis here. It's like a PhD thesis, right? So you have to rejoice in the fact that the Buddha's teaching is so vast. It is so accommodating. You can find all solutions. You can find every evidence in his teachings. So vast. I think we're very lucky and fortunate to be born in this life with, fortunately encountering the teachings of the Buddha. I think every day, if you try to think like that, you will always have this positive thinking, optimism in your life that there's something still in your life, even in the coldest and the most saddest part of a day of life. But when you try to look back what the Buddha has said in a lot of teachings, you'll always find a lot of reason to be optimist in your life. So I think this is the fortunate event of our life, in this modern era. So these 4 lines talk about how to reach to the nature of the mind. But the nature of the mind, we just build the theory, right? But the practice, when you actually practice that, we have now solid background, solid theoretical understanding. But now we have to use that in, again, our applicable in our daily life. And then Khenpo said, you have to always teach the application of the theory. So Vipassana is, after Shamatha, Vipassana, which is combined now, is the real practical thing. We have all this now meditation posture. You have found the right location, the right cushion, free and not far from your subordinates who can help you find food, not so near to the crowd also. So a lot of things prepare, and then you have managed to build all this strong theoretical understanding. Then finally you sit down, then you practice this. That's the practice goal. And then, so now in the Vipassana, as we have built the strong shamatha focusing concentration, we change the focusing object from the breathing counting or the statue of Buddha, or let's say the nature of the 5 skandha or the 5 phenomena. Then finally you change that object to what we call now resting your mind in the nature of the mind. And the nature of the mind, as said in the commentary, is free from 4 extreme. That is Madhyamika. That is what Nagarjuna said. That is what Sakyapa, Nyingmapa, and Kagyupa has in common. But the Gelupa is the only one who has different way of defining emptiness. A little bit different, I would say, but they are very effective, maybe. But I have not practiced. But the one that we practice when we use the nature of the mind as a focal object in Vipassana, you must have after thoroughly analyzing that mind is free from the 4 extremes. 4 extremes, which is taught in the Madhyamika. We will maybe talk about that later. But when you're focusing on and resting in the nature of the mind, you have to think like, when you pour down a drop of water in the water becomes one. In the same way, the nature of the mind, the current nature of the mind that you are actually trying to become one is a drop, but you are dropping down to the ocean or the glass of water, which is the nature of the mind, which is the ground called the relative, the alaya vijnana. But the ultimate nature of the alaya vijnana is non-duality. So therefore, the drop of your mind also has to be immersed and flow, drip down to the ocean that is vast, infinite, like the alaya vijnana, yet non-dual, free from subjective and objective aspect. So if you rest your mind on that kind of way, like the drop of water falling to the glass of water, or the wave coming down, and then immersing with the bottom of the ocean. So that's very good analogy. So that's the way how you rest your mind, the nature of the mind. Now, deconstruction is already gone, right? But still, in the Western academics say that Vipassana is deconstruction, but I think you have to use deconstruction even before practicing the Vipassana. So you're not only dismantling the external object as real, but also the inner mind. So Vipassana. So the fourth point, now here we are talking about the Vipassana practice in this fourth point, or after the fourth point, after you have built the theory on the fourth point of the antidote itself, vanishing on the ground. Vanishing, not really vanishing. The problem with the word vanishing is that it is disappearing. But the water, when the drop of water falls into the ocean, the drop of water is still inside. It is still count as a part of the ocean. So therefore, it is neither separate than the ocean, and neither one. You cannot see it also as a one than the ocean, because it is not born from the same cause of the ocean. Yet it emerged into the ground. So therefore, it's quite difficult to understand the nature of mind, because, to be honest, that's the final thing, the final hurdle in your practice to become Bodhisattva and the Buddha. If it is so easy for me to make you understand the nature of the mind, then maybe I would have also become Bodhisattva or Buddha right now. But that's not the case, right? But we are very fortunate that we have all these teachings, precious teachings that we can actually discuss, build our theory, and then finally talk about practicing. So vanishing sometime may, just like that idea where black and white, good and bad, vanishing also make this understanding in a dualistic way, or it is not there. But the mind, the nature of the mind is not something completely blank. Vanishing means completely dark or blank sometimes. The nature of the mind is there. You see appearance there, which we'll again learn in the off session, post meditative session. One of the logic is that if everything is vanishing in the emptiness, then when you wake up, it should be also same during the post meditation, but you still have appearance in the post meditation, because that's the continuity of the meditation stage. Therefore, one should not understand emptiness as complete blank, empty, dark, or what you call it's not like something when you go beyond the earth and you started to see all the space as a dark and it's completely vast, and then you have this black hole theory coming up. It's not like that, we are, because that are still in the materialistic point of view. Here, for us, appearance still continues to appear, yet there's no conceptual grasping to that appearance. That is the practice of emptiness. And that's called the non-duality of emptiness and appearance. Nangdong Sungjuk in Tibetan, or non-duality in appearance, non-duality of appearance and emptiness. You see things, but you don't grasp them as current state of mind does. You see the mind, you see the plant, you see the car, yet you are now very different. You are seeing them just merely as a dream in a post-meditative session. But in your meditation, you are far beyond that. You are actually seeing those. You're only focusing on the essence of that, which is the non-duality. Right? So therefore, in the word of Nagarjuna, in plain, simple way to understand the ultimate and relative is that relative means you see things. Ultimate means you only see the essence of that. But when you have become a Buddha, then relative and ultimate both become non-dual to the Buddha. And that is the best version of the wisdom we can have. And that's the highest version of wisdom we can have. Even the Bodhisattvas, I think when they're doing meditation, they are not in post-meditation session. But when they are in post-meditative session, they are not in meditative session. Buddha is the only one who can actually combine these two into one. That's why the 11th stage of the Buddha is called non-dual stage of the Buddha. So it's so much, it makes sense slowly. It will start to make sense slowly, So therefore, one should not entangle yourself in the word, but rather try to see those things if it really makes sense into your practice or not. So emptiness means something after you have deconstructed the external object, internal subject, and then that non-duality is something understandable. Then you try to see that, oh, that's the nature of the mind, and then I must rest that mind on that. Actually, you have to see that essence from the mind. So as long as you can see it clearly, you are in a state of ultimate vipassana. You are you are in the stage of bodhisattva meditation stage, and that is the sign you have gained freedom from this samsara of the suffering. Okay, so rest in the alaya, the essence, right? This is what we have been talking until now. Resting in the alaya. So resting in the alaya, because in all the commentary, it is said that you are not pushing your mind through the roof of the building to jump into the ocean. That is not called resting. On the contrary, you are already trying to flow with the ocean, you are not trying to use your hand to swim. You're actually going with the waves flow, and then it is dragging you deeper down to the ocean. That's called resting. You're not trying to fight to take a breath. You are not trying to find oxygen, something like that. So in the state of alaya means you are letting yourself drown to the bottom of the ocean. And when you are reached to the bottom of the ocean, you are not no longer using your hand or leg. That's just an analogy. And to dive into the alaya, you are actually not jumping from the stone of the edge or from the high helicopter or chopper or plane, the door of the plane. You're actually already there in the down of the ocean. So resting in the alaya means a person who is already in the bottom of the ocean in a meditative posture. So therefore, whenever you try to find the nature of the mind through that, you just have to rest through the seven posture of the body posture, and then the mind through the help of shamatha. And then after having used the analysis of this deconstructing the subject and object, finding non-duality, and then you try to continue on that non-duality. That is called rest. So resting is only coming after analysis. So there's no pushing your mind to that analysis at that point. There's no conceptual discrimination. You are not thinking as good and bad when you see the alaya, when you are seeing clearly the nature of the mind, or trying to see the nature of the mind. You don't try to push hard, just like otherwise you'll have a lot of problem, like you will start to lose faith in the teachings of the Buddha, maybe Atisha's commentary, you lose hope. You'll even try to scold me in the next session saying, oh, this guy is talking nonsense. So don't try to push yourself in our lives. So the analogy of waves is the best one, as said in the Sutra of the Buddha. It is in the text. It's not said by some modern teacher or charismatic teachers. It is already in the Buddha's teaching, already in the Abhidharma context. So there it is always saying that when you are not resting, your mind is like a wave that is only in the surface making noise, and then trying to, not only making problem for the waves itself, but also drowning all the ships that is going. So you're not only bringing yourself down, but you're also bringing all the people surrounding your families, friends, through that commotions and emotions. So you have to be a person who's already in the bottom of the ocean. You don't care what is happening in the surface. The surface itself is now calmed. And when the surface of the ocean is very calm, that is the sign where you have reached to the non-duality stage of the mind, and you are focusing on that stage. So you are no longer focusing on external thing like that wave. There's no more wave in your life. So when you're resting in the alaya, you are actually an ocean without the wave, and that is the bottom of the ocean. So I think that's the best part of using the analogy in your daily life when you're now talking about applying this part or the fourth part of the ultimate bodhicitta. So I will take a look at the time. Khenpo told me I have to be punctual with the time. Don't give too much information. So After having raised your mind, as a beginner practitioner, you cannot stay too long on the meditation. You cannot just drown yourself in the alaya for too long. You have to actually come out of it. Just like, you know, the story of Buddha when he was doing the 6-year hardship meditation. He has to be awakened, right? Because if you continue to do that, then he won't benefit other beings. So meditation is, when we begin meditation, all those texts like the Lamde commentary say that the duration has to be short, like a few minutes, few seconds, but the session has to be long, as short at the beginning, session and duration both. But once you gain a little bit of mastery, clarity, then you can increase that duration, the session, right? So maybe I'm the first beginner right now. So when I'm trying to rest in the alaya, I will do that for maybe, let's say, 2 seconds. After having understood that the non-duality is the essence of the mind, I try to immerse that. I try to feel that, observe that without any conceptual grasping. And then I try to do the hard, and maybe 2 minutes, then I take a break. Then when I'm opening my mind completely, eyes completely, I will see that laptop in front of me as a dream. Again, I will close my eyes, not fully closed, in a 7 posture way. And then again, I'll try to rest in the alaya for maybe, this time, maybe 3 minutes. Again, if it's not working, I'm not discouraged, but I will open my mind. I'll try to gain some more energy, more inspiration. Maybe I'll read books beside me, try to generate encouragement. Then I'll again continue. So I'll just do that maybe first day, maybe few minutes. All total maybe 10 session of 5 minutes, maybe, or maybe 2 minutes. And then I will continue that for a few weeks. Then when I'm so much used to that, I'm so much finding comfortable in that and confidence in that, and I'll try to increase the duration, the session also, 4 into 5, 2 to 5 minutes, something like that, right? So that's how you should do meditation. So, and finally, when you do meditation, your mind is supposed to be that bottom of the ocean, you know. And then when you are now awakening, according to the text, now we are almost in the end of the ultimate bodhicitta. So ultimate bodhicitta, second point, has three part: the ngonru, the preliminary, which is counting of breath; the actual stage where you are now focusing on the 4 lines, breaking all the subjective and objective way of our pattern, habitual pattern. We are breaking that. We are keeping our mind in the nature of the mind. And then we are getting out of the meditative session because we have to do things, right? As a human, you have to eat, you have to drink, you have to take a breath, you have to take a what you call bath, you have to eat, drink water. Post meditation, you wake up slowly, not so much excitement. Then you just try to, during the post meditation, it is said that the notion of the emptiness has to be continued in post meditation session, but it is difficult to do that. But you have the liberty to see things as magic, as a dream, or if you see a person in, when you wake up, when you do, you are standing up in post meditation, you are going to walk from one room to another, you see your father and mother, and you try to see them as illusion. That's the best thing you can do in a post meditative session. Yet that doesn't mean that you should completely ignore your father and mother. You try to help them as a bodhicitta, through the bodhicitta, because the definition of bodhicitta means I'm trying to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So that is based on compassion, universal compassion. So therefore it has to be, again, present. You have to think your mother and father as an illusion, yet you also are very compassionate towards them. Likewise to all the sentient beings. And then you do your best to help them, offer them tea, food, and then you go to do your sadhana, or you take a breath. When you're taking a bath, think that all these are nectar and so forth. And then so much optimism has to be used in post-meditation session without getting any attachment. That's the idea of illusion. In post-meditative session, you should not be thinking, oh, I've already done my sadhana, now I should go and kill. I should lie. I should engage in physical misconduct. It's not like that. It should not be. Again, if you're doing that, then that's the useless part of the practice, right? Useless way of living as a Buddhist. In post-meditative session, compassion grounded on that and thinking that everything is like an illusion, yet you are not attached to that, but yet you are still benefiting them. Like the children who doesn't know, I mean, like not the children, sorry. You go to the magic show and then you see the magic. Your children doesn't know that it is magic because they think, oh, it's so real. They get so much carried away. They started to have this next thinking like of the grasping, like, I want to be friend with that illusion. I want to ride on that horse that is the magic horse. I want to play with that clown. But you are a parent who's sitting beside, but you already know that nature of the magic, and then you don't have the attachment to the horse because you already know that. That's the realization. That's coming from the meditative action, meditative practice. So you in the post meditation has to be like that parent who treat that magic horse as a magic. But your son and daughter who are just barely 1 years old, 2 years old, they will have this fantasy about, oh, I want to go to that castle, I wanted to befriend that Mickey Mouse, so forth. But you don't have that craving. That's how you should be living in your whole post-meditation life. So with this, I will try to stop my talk today because I think it's 9:22. So in post-meditation, this is how you have to live in your daily life. So today's talk is mostly from that applicable, practical point of view. I'm not looking at the text today, and also very thankful that I have these good slides made by Ben and the team, and the Lun, Anila, everyone. Thank you for that. And then I think, so you understand that post-meditation is not just having the idea of illusion, but also living with the illusion with compassionate nature and the bodhicitta nature. You are living your whole life based on that principle that everything is illusion, and then you will not get too much attached or aversion to that. So in a daily life, if you are able to live like that, I think you will have lesser problem. You'll have lesser quarrel with people surrounding you. You'll not be bothered by anyone putting your car in front of your front yard, because you will think, oh, this is just a temporary, this is just a impermanent, this is just an illusion. And that's how you live free from every feeling, and then your head is always closer now to that emptiness side where you are seeing things from both post-meditative and meditative session. And that's the way how a bodhisattva should be living in the ultimate stage, ultimate bodhicitta practice. That's the way how you should be practicing the ultimate bodhicitta. So with this, I will stop my talk today. And in next class, we will learn about the other bodhicitta called relative bodhicitta, because we have two bodhicitta, right? So in next class, we'll learn about relative bodhicitta. So with this, I will stop today's session, and I wish you all a good night. And if you have any question, I think I have not got any question this time. So if you have question, I will give you 5 minutes.
各位师兄师姐们，你们有问题吗？如果有问题的话呢，现在可以做提问。
可以我几句话讲，可以这样根本我弟子讲的非常好了。上次我们有翻译找不到，后来是安利他们有意见，一个礼拜是Khenpo讲，然后下个礼拜是讲华语，因为他们有找资料那些。 因为马上翻译来不及。第一次是比较浪费时间，所以呢，第一天是Khenpo Ngawang电竞讲，第二次是要讲华语，安尼他们我论要讲，然后下个礼拜讲华语，再下个礼拜是Khenpo Ngawang电竞再讲过 again 要讲。Khenpo阿伯讲过，大国我们有讲清那些，一定要4次，然后Khenpo Ngawang电视讲2次，然后安尼他们就华人他们也讲2次，这样4遍了了，4遍会了解。然后有些现在有看到人家有AI 的翻译，有前面有念什么，你们自己要念。他Khenpo Ngawang电视讲英文的时候，马上有 translator。马上有翻译，看到字，这些你们学了。上次我记过，没有的话，我们的助理的那个师兄跟师姐问一下，他们有告诉你，你们要直接按一下，他马上会翻译来了。现在21 century 很厉害，什么都会讲。这个是课程是非常非常重要的，因为我们很多的烦恼啊。不顺利啊，很多的问题啊，所以呢，心里没有修行过问题，所以呢，这个是特别修行的意思。然后Khenpo要讲那个要你这个第一要听不够，一定要做啊。比如说你老师教你怎么煮啊，你会教学过后，然后自己要做完了可以要吃，没有吃的话。肚子饿了没有用到，所以呢，先听Khenpo那边听，过后我们要想一想怎么样清清楚楚，然后第3次一定要做，可以做到了，一直听不是关电了，关键听是 OK 了，不用再关过咯。这个是不是啊？要修行的，这个是修行的。我很多年2年已经准备好这个是，但是有些Khenpo Ngawang电视没有时间。我有时候没有找不到翻译，本来是我们的 Mr. 林翻译啊，然后他有时候去印度啊，比较没有空，然后很多找不到了，也是现在是 OK 了，一个礼拜英文，一个礼拜是华语这样，然后你们正式可以马上按AI 的那个马上 translate 我懂了 ，OK，Khenpo Ngawang电视太好了 ，OK，但前嘛你看了是呢。제마 튼다텔라 아니 코도 갸케시그레 아니 코디 야부두서 텐데체나 뒤즈 톨라마데 치치 닐라 코랑고 디 책드즈에 세고라 세우스에디 어디 야부두 뒤즈 톨라마데치 당부딜레치 닐라 아니 엔큐게 수게베당 텐데치 텐데치 람네 테네 테네 다 제마 나도 테마 시송도 컴바베 가르스나 디수 가서 빼자 가르치나 시틱마 텀나 틱 톱긴 세대 요 말에서도 시틱 톱거든 디네 세대엔 톱버다 기억이 세만이 단다 합다 제마들라 갸케시지 어디 제마들 양키기 단다 양 드링시에디 양 고니야 제시시 디네 까마 쫑아 니슈지 동바샤네 디네 티와틸레지 기억이 파 지와 교지 거속의 수 렌탑지 어신下个礼拜，然后再下个礼拜是Khenpo讲一般差不多20分左右给你时间，要Khenpo要考试你考你，这个有7个第一个你说什么？第一你们有重点什么？一定要恢复它要了解一下，休息一下OK， 今天就差不多这样了，阿弥陀佛。
假如师兄师姐们现在没有问题的话，没有关系。如果下播之后呢，就是如果还有问题的话，我们会发一个链接，然后有问题的话可以写。然后呢，多2个礼拜Khenpo电竞呢，就是会在课堂上就是回答你们要的问题，这样子咯。
不好意思，现在还会有时间提问吗
？Khenpo Tenzin, have people have a
Yeah,
check?
just brief questions. Can I? Hi, Khenpo. Tashitale.
Right.
Yep. I'm not too sure about whether my question has any relation to what you have shared. Great sharing. I love that. I love the idea of resting in alaya. And I love one of your example where you mentioned it's like sometimes we have anger when we saw people park in front of our courtyard. I love that. And we encountered this a lot, especially in Yongpeng area, whereby we got double park a lot. And sometimes, we know we should deem it as a temporary or an illusionary
Yeah.
circumstance. But sometimes we are really in rush, probably, and we never know whether that person gonna double park us for how long. So, can you share with us how can we practice the idea of resting in a layer by doing these examples? Thank you so much.
Actually, this example that I mentioned is not resting in alaya. This is actually aftermath of resting in alaya. Aftermath, you finish the alaya resting, and then when you rest in alaya for again and again throughout your life for maybe months and years, then every time you do the post session after the alaya practice, then you start to see things in illusory way. It's not illusory, doesn't come at the beginning. It's only after that meditation, post meditation means after the result of the meditation can be seen in the post meditation, where you started to see things as an illusion, right? But the most important thing here in illusion, in the post meditative session, is that if you forget about the root cause of the bodhicitta, which is the universal compassion, that all sentient beings, all living beings have the same right to be happy as yourself, which will be explained in the third line, I think, or in the next class in the relative bodhicitta, where everything has. But the problem here is because as a human we are not systemized, we are not what you call prepared to live in a non-dualistic way. Even your family don't tell you about non-dualistic way. So I think right from this moment, if you try it every time you get a chance, like maybe 1 hour, maybe 10 minutes, so every day you try to dedicate a time for practicing on the nature of the mind, where you try to think that every phenomena is empty of nature, every of true existence. It is not truly existence, yet it appears to your mind like an illusion. If you try to be habitual with that, if you try to do that again and again, then that's the idea of practicing. If you just focus, that's not practicing, right? Bhavana is something called a kom, and is the idea of bhavana is you have to repeat the course of that focus again and again. So you are not taking a break during that meditative session. You are only taking a break during the post-meditative session. But in meditation session, there's no break of that focus. The focus is continued, and there's no breaking of that continued focus. But if you dedicate 10 minutes of your life to that nature of the mind, which is free of extremes like emptiness, which is not really true as it appears, and then you try to be familiar with that again and again. Like, being familiar makes you see the things more easy. Like when you try to play basketball, the first shot is not always easy, but you prepare, like every day you go to the basket court, you try to hit the shot 10 minutes every day. And after 1 year, you will see a lot of improvement. You can easily do the shot 3 points without any hesitation. In the same way, when you place the mind and place your focus, placing the nature of the mind, resting the alaya means focusing on the nature of the mind, the alaya, which is free from all the dualistic subject and object notion, right? Which has been deconstructed in the first 2 lines because they don't exist, because there's no cause, real cause for that. Because if you divide from the 3 times, you don't see them as real. If something is real, it must be in present, past, and future. And that's what the non-Buddhists always talk about the gods. They think the God is real because the God is always omnipresent and so, but then We try to deconstruct that by saying that God is actually not in the past, present, and future because they are born from cause and condition. And when this cause and condition is stopped, then God even stop existing, something like that, right? So whenever something stop to exist, that means it is not real. So in the same way, you have to deconstruct the nature of the mind as not being real. And then finally, when you have seen the non-real existence of the mind, then you have to focus. At that point, there's no analysis. Resting means you have to just see that through the bare eyes like thing, It's like a naked vision. Resting in the pure nature mind, you are just seeing it face to face, and there's no barrier there. There's no conceptual barrier between the nature of the mind and the one yourself who's seeing there. Because right now, what is making us difficult to see the nature of mind is this barrier. The barrier is caused by emotions like concept, 80 kind of concept, or in the Buddha's teaching is called 84,000 kind of concepts. 84,000 kind of emotions are blocking this, getting close to the nature of the mind. And how to get rid of that, we have to think that this appearance, if you try to find the cause, it doesn't exist. You try to find the time, it doesn't exist. So you analyze that, and then you try to break the existence of that thing, yet it appears. So when you are able to break that barrier through a lot of logical reasoning and analysis, then it is still there, it will come there, but it has to be faded away now. The root is still there, but it is a little bit blurred now. But in order to uproot that, you have to now do the 10-minute session, 1 hour session, or 4 session a day in actual practice of retreat. Then it helps to completely root out all this barrier, and then you can you can nakedly see the nature of the mind. So nature of the mind is based on the alaya, but yet the problem is if you hold the alaya as true existing, and I think that's a big problem again. So it's very tough, right? Because somebody sent a message here saying it's not easy to do meditation. It is true, I agree with that. But again, if you dedicate at least you start with a few minutes, and then you slowly, gradually increase that a few hours a day, every day in your life, you dedicate that point. I think this is the final practice of your whole point of being a Buddhist. This is the final practice of the ultimate bodhicitta is the final practice of all the teachings of Buddha. There are 84,000. They are all combined in this. And if you master this by dedicating every part of your life every day to it, then you will start to be familiar be familiar with that, just like you are hitting easily to the basket shot in 3-pointer without any difficulty after 2 or 3 years of practicing. So practice is what makes you perfect. That's the reality of meditation. Meditation means you have to do it over again and again. So because it's difficult because we are not trained like that as a human. We are only trained to submit ourselves to the external thing. We submit to the physical things like, oh, it's getting cold, I must wear a coat. But you are not looking inwardly, what's the nature of the mind? Because I would say 100% of your whole day, you are dedicated only on the senses, like what you see, the phone, what the news you hear, or the weather that you feel. You are dedicating your whole life to that. And that's not the way how you do meditation. For meditation is completely against that. You have to actually dedicate insight, which is the nature of the mind. So I hope it is clear.
OK，我几句话刚刚忘记了，我现在是比较没有空。现在那个Khenpo讲那些可以录起来，可以随人的可以直播，可以。上次我问过Khenpo，可以开放不是特别秘密，可以开放，可以直播，然后YouTube Facebook 谁都可以开放了。这个是每个人用到、听到，他有帮到就 OK 了。OK， 阿弥陀佛，今天时间差不多了，不要太长，刚刚好，差不多了，下次再安排一下。OK， 这是点了Khenpo了，你们这些帮忙 OK。
Okay, I will just bid good night to everyone. I think it's a little bit heavy for today's session. So we'll again meet for next session. Then you can, if you have all this doubt, please send the question. It doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2 questions, just send it, no problem. So I will take a break. I will take a leave now. So I wish you all a very good weekend. And yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Khenpo.
Thank you,
Okay,
Khenpo.
thank you, Khenpo Tenzin.
Bye-bye.
Good night.